Thank you. So today is January 26th, 2026, and this is the preview session for the Foundations of Trust and Connection. And um, we want to just create a kind of a sense of community. I think most people said where they were calling in from, but not all the way yet. So if you would love to put in the chat where you're calling in from, and also the ages of your children or the children you work with, if you're a youth serving professional. And again, as a heads up, we are recording. Only the speaker will be recorded. So when you ask a question, though, that means that the video and your name will appear in the recording. So feel free to turn off your video and delete your name if you want to keep anonymity while participating and asking a question. And some coming in. Indiana 10 and 5. And then from Golden, Colorado, which is Denver metro area. Work in the middle school and have a 12-year-old daughter. And also Parker, Colorado, a 6 and a 7-year-old. And Denver area, 13 and 10. Also homeschooling. 13. Yes. Thank you. So if you're a parent, I'm guessing you're here because you really care about nurturing your long-term relationship with your children and building peace and connection in your family and that rippling out into the world and your community and your work and your classroom. And if you are someone who works with children, I'm guessing you're also here because you really want to support those that you work with and grow your meaningful connections with them. And you may also feel exhausted and overwhelmed by all there is. Really just want some more ease and hope in your day-to-day life, in your family life, in your work life, in your community. So yeah, let us know. Does this resonate with you? Wanting some ease and hope? Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Turn it over to Holly.
Thank you. And just to get even a little bit more narrowed down and clear about why you're here and what's important to you, I'm going to put a few possibilities of why you're here in the chat, but I also welcome you to freeform and just, communicate in the chat what brings you here today, or if you're moved to like just pop in and speak. We're a small enough group that we welcome you to do that. So some of the reasons that we often hear from parents are that you really want to better understand your own feelings and how the nervous system works so you can regulate and stay connected to your inner compass and guide those who you care for to and support to do the same. Another reason we often hear from parents is that you want to shift your communication habits, that you want your communication to truly align with your values and what's happening internally in your heart, so that you can really model the kind of relationships you want with children, students, your community, or clients. Uh, C is to build skills that nurture relationships built on trust and connection. um, so those in your care will want to stay connected even as they grow older and find their own way. I hear a lot from parents that they're really worried that their kids are going to grow up and not really care to be around them anymore once they don't need them as much. So really wanting to nurture relationships where kids want to be in connection with you. And D, repair. Really understanding how to repair and model healthy conflict and collaboration and relationships, recognizing the strengths of the bonds and really sharing with those in your care, those that you work with, what resilient relationships look like, and that conflict does not mean that you have to part ways. Conflict can mean stronger, more resilient relationships. So what speaks to you And again, I invite a couple people to speak up if there's anything that really speaks to you, or if you want to put it in the chat, either way.
I've heard nonviolent communication used in very specific like training scenarios where there's a person who is really upset and there's somebody who's interacting back with them. And every time I hear, so I have a history in social work and counseling.
Mhm.
And every time I hear those training situations, it feels like I don't know, like, oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like, or that's how you, I don't know, it just feels right. Like, I don't know, internally, it feels like the way that communicating with each other should be. And I
Yeah,
don't want to put a should on it, but that's it
yeah,
just sits so well inside that I've always been drawn to it. So I've known about NVC for I don't know, probably about 20 years or so and never really got any training in it or anything. So
yeah. Oh, Christy, thank you so much for sharing that. I hear that all the time too. Like, wow, how do you know how to put things into words? Like, yes, that's what
yeah.
I was thinking, but you knew how to put it into words. And I have to say that before I started studying in VC, I stuck my foot in my mouth all the time. It felt like I was a pro at things coming out 180 degrees different than what I intended. And the results really showing for that. And it really has been learning, and not just learning the skills of MVC, because I did know it. Like I read the book, I understood it as a script, but until I internalized it and really understood it, uh, I was still speaking like in a script, and it didn't bring the results I was looking for. And really, that's the goal for Mary and I, is to share this in a way that you can internalize it and bring it to life. And it does that you get those comments too of, how did you say what I was thinking? Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you. I see B, and almost all alive right now. I'm hearing you being and A through D, being in community with like-minded parents, continuing to communicate my values and intentions and staying connected to them, keeping them at the forefront of my thoughts by staying engaged. Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. Michelle, do you want to contribute anything?
Sure, I was kind of thinking smart aleckly, like all of the above. But what really does resonate probably most for me, being with a lot of teenagers and tweenagers, is the reconnecting and repairing, or settling into calm. Because I think a really easy tendency in a middle school and at home with a tween, I feel like we can just ramp up and get weird really quick. And I also really would love some strategies to connect with my daughter in such a it's such a tenuous time. We've been so close since she was an infant, and now she is naturally and developmentally finding her own way. So I don't want to be that weird parent that demands bonding that isn't appropriate for this age, but at the same time, I still want those special, tender moments. And I also am finding myself getting defensive when there are wounded parts of me as a smaller person or even as an adult that come out in kind of prickly ways that I would just love some strategy for, so that I can be authentic but effective.
Beautiful. And I saw the celebration hands. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for naming that. Ooh, I think, I think we all share in those parts that come out um, in unintended and unaware ways at times. And this has certainly helped me I bring more awareness to that, so I can um, really approach those things with more mindfulness. And that's not to say it never happens, right? But it's just like when it does, like you said, I have the tools to repair. When I'm in the middle of it, I have the tools to de-escalate. And I can prepare myself in ways like just by bringing awareness and self-compassion and vulnerability and processing it in a different container, I can show up in ways that align um, often more with what my children need to begin with and kind of prevent some of those uncomfortable situations as well. So thank you for naming all three of those levels. I really appreciate it. Okay, anything else that wants to be said before we move on? So our approach really draws from a variety of trusted sources, all with the aim of creating secure attachment relationships with your child. So while, this is certainly based in nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg's work, we also, I'm in, I kind of have an addiction to reading parenting books and, all of that. And so it's really rooted as well in like Dan Siegel's work, Tina Payne Bryson's work, child development, we'll pull from Gordon Neufeld, so many different professionals that speak to secure attachment. We also bring in the work of like Stephen Porges, nervous system and brain science. And then, like I mentioned, we all know that the real basis of all of this is Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, because we've just found that those strategies, time and time again, support secure attachment. Anytime I go down another road, it's like, oh, well, Marshall Rosenberg was kind of already doing this. So it is very reassuring every time to turn back to that work. So that's the bulk of what we do. So today, we're really focusing on that nonviolent communication piece of our work to give you a sample of how to bridge conflict into connection with the children in your life. So NVC is both a way of communicating with each other, but it's also a way of being. Christy kind of spoke to that, a way of being in our hearts and really showing up with people, an energy that can be felt as love, as connection, as everybody being seen, heard, and understood. So the what we're going to go through today is Mary and I will share our stories and share a little bit about of ourselves, and then we'll walk you through a process that will give you a chance to really shift a real life conflict you've experienced into connection so you can practice it and see what it feels like for your family. And lastly, we will share about the program that we're offering this spring, so you can learn the nuances of of NVC and really have an opportunity to practice and dig deeper. All right, on to you, Mary.
Thank you, Holly. And thank you everyone for sharing like what really inspired you to be here. And for me, I love this because it brings me hope and connection, that we're all doing this work and all wanting to bring more peace into our families and into the world. So I'm really happy to be here with you today and just for the opportunity to learn together and grow together. As Holly mentioned, I live in Chesterton, Indiana, which is about an hour outside of Chicago, on the southern tip of Lake Michigan. And I live with my husband and our two daughters who are 6 and 7 years old, and our sweet little dog Buddy. And my background is in education. I have a degree to teach secondary social studies, and I have a minor in gender studies. And I also have a teaching certificate for Montessori for lower elementary. I taught lower elementary at Montessori for 5 years. And I've taught in a variety of other educational settings for the 15 years before I had kids, including working with homeschool students in my home and self-directed learning environment. And a lot of what drew me into NBC, though, is really that pang of discomfort whenever there's a conflict. Have you felt this pang before, for a conflict either that you were involved with or that you were a witness to? And it's not just about whatever the content of the conflict is. It's really, for me, like the way that we're shown conflict works, that there's a right and a wrong, that someone's always to blame or at fault. It's either going to end up your way or my way or some compromise that really doesn't work out for anyone. So I noticed this pang of discomfort often. I noticed it when I was supporting students in the classroom, when there was conflict, like in the Montessori classroom, there was a peace table and everyone would come to the peace table. And I focused on understanding, but there was still this unease and this underlying sense of blame. And when I talked with my students' parents, there was a disconnect between how deeply I cared for their children and how much I like would do anything for them, and their sense of really relaxing into and trusting that care. And my partner and I would cycle through the same disagreements over and over, never really making any meaningful progress in our challenges. And I knew that I wanted to get away from blame or this idea that there was like some magical right way, but I didn't know what it was. I knew I wanted peace, but I didn't know where to go to learn. So I'd love to just check in first. Do any of these conflicts resonate with you? Have you been down this path before? Thank you. It helps me to know I'm not alone in some of these life experiences. Yeah, just feeling kind of stuck on how to create peace and how to help everyone get along in your life. So I didn't realize it then, but really what was missing for me was shifting my focus from problem solving, from trying to fix it, to instead really seeing conflict as a bridge to connection, really opening up a world of possibilities. And so when I first read Marshall's book, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life, I felt as though I had found like the missing key, like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been needing this whole time. It really helped me to articulate and live my long-held values of compassion and care for everyone and empathy and peace by naming and honoring what's important to each of us. And this quality of connection supports transforming conflict into authentic peace. So this really was the missing key when I was navigating conflicts between children. Um, they were able to connect with each other without blame because they were focusing on their needs. And then they were able to authentically then connect again and go forward together. It supported me in my relationship with the students, with the parents of my students, because I realized what a huge role empathy first played in building relationship and a quality of connection. And my husband, who thankfully decided to join me in this journey of learning and practicing nonviolent communication, we began to have conversations that actually got to the heart of what was important to both of us. And today we're free from many of the old patterns that we were stuck in darkness in before. And we've really navigated tremendous circumstances. And I know nonviolent communication is what supported our marriage and being able to continue. So central to all of this was noticing that initial pang of discomfort, my own awareness of internal conflict. And it's in moments of like that when I notice that's my cue to connect to what's important to me so that I can be more fully present to the life in others. And transparently, I feel like a great sadness that I didn't have this awareness or skill when I first started teaching. and working with children and families. And also, I didn't have it at the beginning of my marriage and my relationship with my husband. Because despite my best intentions, I now see that some of my actions actually created disconnect rather than connection. And so, a huge part of this journey for me is self-compassion and remembering that I'm human and I make mistakes just like all humans. And I'm doing the best I can each moment. And having compassion and understanding and warmth for myself, it increases my capacity then to have that same compassion for my children and for those I work with and those in my life. And so when I inevitably make a mistake or I snap in a stressful situation or I don't show up the way I want to, I've cultivated the heart space and the skills to repair and restore connection. And having this clarity and hope of having a path forward towards trust and connection really supports me in all of the messiness of being human and my sense of empowerment and choice towards thriving. So having the words to help align with my intentions and my heart that's always been there, um, it helps me to show up the way I want to. And that's what I'm eager to share as a trainer and in this program. And so for me, my journey continued. I found NBC and was like, I want to get into this. And so I started taking trainings. I started sharing with my students, and then soon their parents started becoming curious, like, what are you sharing with them? Because they were noticing shifts at home. And so I started sharing with their parents and realized how much I love this. And became the path and now am a certified trainer through the Center for Nonviolent Communication. So living NVC has really supported me in connecting deeply with my children, trusting that we can navigate challenges together. I really feel passionate that all people experience the love and peace and connection that living in the consciousness of NVC can offer us, and just want to continually build community and living love. And I've really found that community has been core, as we kind of talked about from at the beginning when you were coming on, Christy, and kind of explaining all the connections. And I know this came up the other day in a conversation too, that community has been core to my integration and my ability to live NVC and to parent in the way that I want to. We're not meant to do it alone. And that's really, again, part of the vision of this program is to create a community of support for parents and for those who work with children, so that we can create a world with more compassion and peace for everyone. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing more, Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Holly Storm. I'm a certified parenting coach. I'm a certified life coach and uncertified nonviolent communications facilitator. I have facilitated classes on both the local and I guess international level, like shared assisted, and facilitated this class and we're going on 3 years. Um, I help parents tap into their inner wisdom to build a deep sense of belonging, connection, and trust with themselves and with their children so that they can really have relationships that stand the test of time. I'll speak more to that a little later because that was not my experience growing up. I have a 10-year-old son and a 14-year-old son. I live with my husband and our fluffy doodle named Shadow. So I want to start with like the celebrations and the positive stuff. So I have a 14-year-old, so he's my longest living experiment, right, as being a parent. And as my longest living experiment, I feel pretty good about it. We got off to a really, really rough start, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but now I just am so thrilled. I actually had a mom come up to me at one point last fall, and she was like, "Oh, So you're his mom. Ever since I met him at this kid's birthday party, I've wanted to know who his parents were because he was so different from the other kids and in this like really loving and caring way. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I couldn't have asked for, you know, um, to be seen for all the effort I have put into my parenting. He is incredibly independent. He's going to ride 5,280 miles this year on his bike, and he's right now 30 miles ahead of schedule. So he's feeling really confident and good about that. Goes on 30-mile like mountain bike rides just because he loves it. Um, he helps out when asked. He takes personal responsibility for himself, takes care of his schooling, cares a lot about school, which I had a lot of school trauma, so I wasn't necessarily encouraging my kids to like really watch their grades or anything, but he's taken that upon himself and really cares about his schoolwork and puts his heart into it. He goes to a Montessori school, so that is a little more open and flexible than many schools are, a little less pressure in that way. But he also really just shares in this connection and the family values that we have. When there's a rupture with his brother, they can repair it together. When his little brother starts poking him, looking for attention, he can be patient with them. And then sometimes it takes a little bit of coaching from me, but really lovingly turn towards the connection and try to nurture it, going about it in a collaborative way. So this might sound like an outlier, and I get that. Um, I'd love for the world to know that teens don't have to fit into this stereotypical rebellious mold that our society has painted. I read that this was possible. This was not my upbringing, but once I read it was possible, I was sure going to make it happen. And I can't believe I'm here so many years later and like living that dream of getting to cuddle on the couch. Last night, I was putting my younger son to bed, and I was like, oh, I really miss having time with you in the evening. Uh, he's he likes to go to bed independently now. And so he just stopped and gave me a hand massage. And then he went off to bed. And I was like, oh my God, I am so lucky. So, that being said, I started with the celebrations. There's still rough patches, right? There's times that we don't see eye to eye in strategies. And we have the tools to get beneath that and to repair when maybe I am falling into habitual patterns or not seeing him as the fully formed human being that he is, or when, another rupture happens. So overall, I feel really confident in the foundations that we've built. So I promised I'd share a little bit about my story. As a new parent, I knew that I wanted to parent differently. My siblings and I couldn't wait to get out of the house. It was so incredibly stressful. And that was not the relationship I wanted with my kids. So I mentioned I read a lot of books. I read a lot of books, including Nonviolent Communication, A Way of Life. And even though I was reading all the books and I was reading blogs and podcasts weren't really a thing yet, but I was really trying to intake all of the information I could. It didn't change how I showed up for my kids. And when my oldest was 2, I mean, occasionally this monster mom would just like surprise me and come out. And I was like, wow, this isn't the person I remember being. I was always the one to, connect people, be the peacemaker everywhere. But something about having a child, I would find like this monster mom would erupt. And when he was 2, it erupted in this way with so much force. I was embarrassed and shocked and ashamed and really realized I needed to do something to manage my anger. So I doubled down on all my efforts, and guess what? I learned how to hold in my emotions. So I got more and more tense, and there was still a lot of problems in our family. And by the age of 7, my son had debilitating anxiety. And that is not to negate that 5.5-year-old anxiety is real, which we were talking about earlier, but his really spun into this debilitating anxiety where he was vomiting for 2 hours every morning before school. He could barely make it to school. He had volatile emotions. We never knew if he was going to swing at somebody. We couldn't leave the 2 kids in the room together alone. I literally locked the knife drawer because I didn't know if he would be safe, and I wanted our home to be safe enough. I was terrified that he was going to follow into family patterns of addiction, depression, and suicide. And so what did I do? I tried to fix him. Got him into therapy, tried to do all of these different things, and nothing worked. And then one day I got a fortuitous email that took me into my parent coaching journey eventually, but part of that was getting coaching myself as a parent. And that's when everything started to shift. Because even though I cognitively knew differently, my habitual patterns were showing up in this way that was creating this devastating separation that I didn't even know. I didn't realize. I was so out of connection that I didn't know we weren't connected. And once I really saw him in this new light, and particularly once I started studying nonviolent communication and leaning into self-compassion and really seeing his needs and being able to name those and hold both of our needs with care, doing enough healing to do that, that's when I realized he didn't need fixing. He just needed connection. He needed love. He needed to know he'd be seen and understood. He needed to know it was okay to have big feelings and safe to have big feelings, that he wasn't some, oddball for human to have these big feelings, and they were safe with me. And so that really changed everything for us. This allowed us to really lean into body sensations. And I was able to coach him so he could better understand his own feelings and needs and start advocating for himself. So we could start collaborating, understanding my own needs so we could start collaborating. And then, like I said, that repair piece was really, really key for us. And all that said, it's of course an ongoing journey, like I mentioned earlier. There's no parenting perfect. And so there's times that I show up in all my humanity, in all of uh, my habitual patterns that I've been working to nourish and heal and shift. And we repair and we reconnect. And I have every faith in the world that we will remain connected through adulthood. I'm just curious, after hearing Mary and my stories, if there's anything coming up for anyone that you would like to share, or anything that's really resonating for you that you've heard before we move on. All right. Well, I will turn it over to Mary to talk more about our vision, and then we'll go into the exercise.
Thank you, Holly, for sharing. Yeah. So our vision for this program is to provide foundational guidance along with ongoing support and, and community for parents who want to build lasting trust and connection in their families and have that ripple out into their communities and into the world. And I'm guessing all could really use some support and connection and community. If you, yeah. You agree? Like, yeah, give a nod. Yeah, this is important to you too. So thanks. Yeah, the structure of our program includes a 14-week foundations program where we share the guiding principles. Again, that's rooted in nonviolent communication and really informed by all of our knowledge and information around our nervous system and attachment. And then we offer a continuation program for, for parents who would like to continue with us, where we build community to receive support and share with each other, and really integrating these foundational concepts so they become a habitual part of our life and how our families operate. And we'll talk more in depth around the structure of the program and what it looks like later. But first, we wanted to provide a little bit of background. Holly's going to talk about attachment, and then then we'll have some time for practice all together so that you guys can play.
And I know we're all eager to get to the play part. So thanks, Mary. Like I mentioned earlier, the goal of this program is to really nurture secure attachment. So to us, this means maintaining a sense of belonging and trust in the relationship, even in the face of conflict. So in short, that means families where individuals are aware of their own needs, where people feel empowered to make requests to meet those needs. And while we're requesting to meet those needs, that we're really holding others' needs with care too. So some of the benefits of secure attachment is that it enables children to eventually fly independently, and really from this foundation of healthy relationships. It encourages children's curiosity by reducing fear and anxiety about their world. They literally feel more secure in their foundations. It helps children and adults to really recognize our internal compass, and it attracts us to relationships that nurture our internal compass. So as many of us come in with mixed attachment styles and insecure attachment styles. And as we heal, we're actually building our own secure attachment. And so we are going to be more attracted to others that are nurturing that. Whereas when we're in insecure attachment, that may feel uncomfortable, and we may not even recognize that the safety feels uncomfortable. So we're pivoting that compass to really feel safe and grounded when the people around us are safe and grounded, and holding that for our kids too. Secure attachment increases intrinsic motivation. So motivation, just doing things because they feel good when they do things. And that really allows kids to explore their full potential. And then the long-term impacts of secure attachment, one, as children grow with secure attachment, it ensures that they feel supported and can really turn to the parents for help, especially in those most difficult situations. And it really creates these, like I said, our internal compass. So as our children grow up and attract partners and that kind of stuff, they're more likely to be attracted to people that are secure in themselves, forming healthier relationships. Any questions about that before we move on? All right.
Thanks, Holly. Um, so we wanted to have an opportunity for all of you to participate and play, as I like to think of it. This also gives you a taste of what it's like in our classes. We have very interactive classes where there's times for reflection, times for practice, and this is, for us, what supports our integration and deepens our understanding. So Holly, help me remember. Did the worksheet get sent out or not? Do we
Yes,
need to
in
put
the
it? Okay.
confirmation email, there was a
Okay.
worksheet, and I will put the link in the chat just in case you missed that so that you can follow along. I will also bring up some slides. So
Oh, thank you.
try to
Thank
get
you,
all
thank
of
you,
our
thank you for
bases
all of
covered.
it. Yeah. And it's no worries if you didn't know there was a worksheet there. This is just again, everything's by choice that we offer. So um but we wanted to do this guided journal exercise to show how we can connect through conflict. using nonviolent communication. And give everyone a minute to pull it up in case you need a second if you wanted to follow along and look at it. There's a there we go. Oh, good. There's people. So we invite you to reflect in a guided journal to raise your awareness about our habitual responses and possibilities for communicating with connection and trust. And so that begins with an observation. So I invite you, if you'd like to, you can jot down, or if you want to just hold it in your head, that's fine too. And even if you don't have the sheet printed out, even jotting it down anywhere, that's convenient. What is something that happened maybe pretty recently, a conflict, something didn't go as you would have liked with your child? Something that happened maybe in the last week or two that still has some energy around it. And something also that's not the biggest conflict you've had, but on a scale of 1 to 10, that's maybe like a 3. Not the largest challenge, but something that would be enjoyable for you to work with. And go ahead and write that down. Specifically, like what did someone say or do? This would be the observation in nonviolent communication. And so, like, as an example, your child says no when it's time to leave. So, oftentimes something happens, and our habitual response is there's some judgment that comes up. Um, we may have judgments of our child that arise, or we may have judgments of ourselves. And those judgments, that's part of our habitual way of thinking. And in NVC, we want to become aware of those judgments because they can alert us to times when our needs are being met or not met. And we can also name those and realize that those judgments aren't true. So this next step is to bring awareness to our habitual thoughts and judgments. So in this particular situation, what judgments came up about your child? You may have had a judgment like, oh, they're so selfish, or they can't handle when anything's different than the way that they like. They're inflexible. You may have a judgment of yourself. Like you might be judging yourself for, oh, it's my busy schedule. If I just like calmed down more and devoted more time to them, then we wouldn't have conflicts like this. Or I'm always losing my temper faster than I want to, and I can't keep my anger under control. Those would be judgments of ourselves. So I invite you to record judgments of your child as well as judgments of yourself. And again, this is just to raise awareness. We don't believe the judgments but as we become aware of them, then they can provide us information about what's really important to us and also what's important to our children. And then when there are conflicts like this, then how do they typically end? Like, how did this conflict end and how do they typically end? I know there can be some patterns of how they end. Sometimes maybe um, you choose to use your power over your child in that moment. Sometimes you give up on your needs and what's important to you. You snap and you walk away, right? Um, you leave feeling frustrated, disconnected, maybe even guilty. So how does the conflict typically end for you? And how do you feel when it ends this way? And I'd love to pause here and just see if anyone is willing to share just briefly what your conflict is, maybe how it typically ends. How do you feel when it ends that way?
I'll share.
Thanks. And then I saw you and Mike too, Christy, so we can go to you next. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
go ahead,
whoops.
Michelle. No,
Did
that's okay.
Christy?
It's simultaneous. So yeah, go ahead. So go ahead,
Oh,
Michelle,
okay.
please. Yeah.
So the conflict is actually kind of goofy. Um, Getting her to wear her hiking boots instead of her Converse when it was snowing. So this was yesterday. We had this big conversation. And the judgments that I had were she's more worried about being cool than safe. This will make our family look bad. We're not following the guidance email to make sure your kid comes to school with all of their warm clothes on. Like we're bad parents. We're gonna look bad. And then the conflict ended where we just gave up. And I don't honestly remember what we said to end it, but it was kind of like you're the boss of your body. Um, and so I just sort of was like a dog with my tail between my legs, kind of just like wandered off and felt pretty deflated and defeated, and also kind of like embarrassed at myself and us for making such a big deal out of it. Like, why the end of the world wearing Converse instead of your hiking boots?
My chuckle is in full resonance with the same situations I've been in. Oh, thank you, Michelle, for sharing and just also sharing the many layers of that. There's like the judgments around that maybe came up around her and also this like the fear, the judgments of how other people might judge you. So there's these layers of judgments that start to arise. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing. And we're gonna keep working with it. So I won't leave you hanging with this. This is how it ends and that's it. But I kind of want to check in as we go along, hear what everyone's working with. Yeah. And Christy, did you want to share yours too?
Sure. It was, I mean, it's basic. My oldest kid, my 10-year-old, lied about doing his homework, or not his homework, but his schoolwork. We homeschool. Um, he said he did it. He didn't do it. I said, "Are you telling the truth?" He said, "No." Um, so he's pretty good about saying he's not, but this is a repeat thing for him. He's lying a lot lately. Um, Judgment about why that's happening, me not being able to meet his needs. He doesn't feel safe to tell the truth. Um, yeah, like I'm not a good enough parent kind of thing. Um, and then I can't remember what the steps were, but he told the truth right away, and but then because it's been happening a lot, I got angry at him, and it's very relatable to Michelle's story. Like, what, there was nothing to do. There was no end to it. It was just like, why is this happening? I'm not. We don't punish him. We don't have any recourse, and there's no way to. I don't know. We're not able to engage him in communication, so it's kind of like it just falls flat. Now I'm angry, and it's disconnect, and that's it. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Christy. Yeah, hearing like the there's the judgments, but then there's also this like level of concern both for like really wanting to be there for him and make sure that he feels comfortable sharing with you, but also like really wanting to figure out like, well, what do I do with this? Like where do we go from here? You know, how can we find connection? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing. And like helps to have a sense of what everybody's kind of working with as we go through the steps. And I'd like to continue then uh, on to the next part, which is connection. So we've identified like the observation, what it is that happened, and named our kind of our habitual responses, our judgments, and even you know, like the patterns that we've started to notice of how sometimes these conflicts end, or don't really end, don't really have a clear ending or closure of any kind. And so from here, then, um, for me, uh, I've noticed that when conflict occurs, a lot of times it repeats. And I kind of imagine this like well-worn path of disconnection. And every time there's another conflict, there's more disconnection. The ruts of this path just get deeper and harder to navigate. And I imagine this path of disconnection being like going into dark woods where I can't see anything, but I know there are all these obstacles on the path. And I just feel hopeless that I can ever make it out and that there's even light on the other end. So for me, instead of taking this path of disconnection, I can make a different choice when there's a conflict. I can choose a path of connection. So on this path, I can observe my judgments and get curious about what these judgments are telling me is important. And so we do this through self-connection, this process of self-connection. So that's the part we're moving to next in our journal. So there's the first step is to connect with your feelings. So when this happened, how were you feeling? And we have a short needs list here if this is supportive for you, or any other feeling words that are already in your awareness and vocabulary are great too. But if you needed a short list, were you feeling frustrated, sad, hurt, lonely, scared, embarrassed, nervous? And in nonviolent communication, our feelings point to our needs that are met or not being met in that moment. And needs are really the core of nonviolent communication. Uh, the ideas are that every human has the same needs. It's what it means to be alive, to be human, and that each action is an attempt to meet a need. So we connect with what's important to you then. So these feelings, whatever you noticed you were feeling as you think about this, connect with what's important to you and name your needs. And again, we have a short list of needs there, but if you're familiar with other needs, feel free to add them. But belonging, safety, trust, play, growth, choice, connection. Awesome. And after you have this time of connecting with your own feelings and needs, I invite you to connect with the feelings and needs of your child. What do you think your child was feeling in that moment as they were putting on their Converse instead, or saying that they had done their work? What do you think they were feeling? And of course, it's a guess. We don't know for sure until we ask them, but this is internal work right now for us. And as we think about what they're feeling, can you guess maybe what's important to them? What were they needing in that moment? And once we've done this internal work of self-connection, we've connected with our feelings and needs, and we've also gotten curious about what may be going on for our children and what their feelings and needs are, then we have some choices to create a quality of connection with your child. And we have two choices that are apparent to us. And the first one is to guess what they're feeling and needing. So this would be empathy. And there's blanks on the worksheet. And you don't have to follow the script, but it helps us to frame it. Are you feeling blank, whatever your guess is, because you're needing blank? Or you could also say, because blank, whatever the need is really important to you. You could also share what your feelings and needs are. This is self-expression in NVC. So you can share what you're feeling and what you're needing and express that to another. And then you can follow either of those with connection requests to build the quality of connection. So, of course, the first one is an empathy is an actual guess. Like they're invited to share. Is this really what you're feeling? And if your guess isn't accurate, that's okay, because you're opening your heart to what's alive and they'll let you know. Like if you made a guess or were you feeling embarrassed? I'm like, no, I'm not embarrassed. I'm angry. Like, awesome. Now we know. This is an opening to connect with them. Like, awesome. What's important to you around that? You're feeling really angry. So this that is one way to build the connection. And then we have other connection requests that can support us in building connection. Like as you're talking with them, is there more you'd like to be heard for? Is there more you want to share with me? Is there more you want me to know? And perhaps after they share, then you can also ask, can I share what comes up for me as I hear you share? And then we eventually can work together and get to this point after your child feels a sense of really being heard and a sense of care, and you have been able to express what's important to you. You can move toward an action request. Can we work together to find a way forward that works for both of us? What can we do here? How can we figure this out together? Framing it not as a conflict, as me against you, as someone's winning or losing, but this is a dilemma. What can we do? And that invites them uh, into what's happening, helps them to step into their power, and also supports all of the needs being considered and moving forward. So I'm wondering, like, can you imagine approaching conflict differently now that you kind of see this way? Does it present some hope or opportunity for a different way of approaching it? Give like a thumbs up or like, no way. I still have no idea what to do. That's totally okay too. This is just the beginning. Awesome.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not well formulated, but um, like this is not a new thing to my brain. So I've tried to use it for a long time, not well, not trained for whatever, but consciousness about my child as a whole person already. he's got he's got things he needs, um, but for whatever reason. He's autistic, so my oldest is autistic, but for whatever reason, be it that or I don't know, anxiety or whatever else, he can't do this. So that's part of the frustration for me. So it feels like it backfires. Do you have like experience with that, or like, can you talk about what it looks like when the person on the receiving end can't really participate in that way? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I can share a little bit from what I know, my experience, and I invite Holly to add anything else in. Um, for me, a lot of the work is internal. So that beginning part that we did, the self-connection piece around what my feelings and needs are and guessing what's going on for my child, is that for me is the transformative part. And often as I practice, I get to a point of groundedness and stability to be able to be there for my child in whatever is alive for them. And that accompaniment with what's going on for them is what supports connection. And oftentimes, I make choices from that point that I feel are in alignment with what's important to me, even if that's different from like the judgments that I may have had at the beginning of whatever the conflict was, right? Like there's a genuine and authentic internal shift in me, and that supports my general calmness and stability in the moment, which also supports my child. And also, I'm guessing there's a part of it too where there's like a longing for a deeper sense of connection with him. And it's for me, again, I can only speak from my experience. But having children helps me to see like what connection looks like and feels like is different for everyone. And that's also like my own journey of acceptance around that too. Um, So that's, I think, how I can best answer that in this moment. And I'm really curious if Holly, if you want to add more to that, or share.
Sure. I I guess I'd like to check in first with Christy and just see if you have further questions or how that's sitting for you.
Um, I- do you have anything to add? There's a lot. I mean, I have 11 years, almost 11 years with him.
Yeah.
So there's so much that I
Yeah.
could say. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that it's complicated because um, we've been looking for his entire life um, for support.
Yeah.
And it's it's different because he's autistic. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing how big this feels for you and the amount of time and effort and energy you have put into searching in addition to your professional background. And this such longing and desire, I'm hearing both to connect, but also to be able to collaborate with him in a way that truly feels meaningful and mutual. Is that right? Okay. I do have, I'm getting more and more experience with autistic parents and autistic and parents of autistic children. Um, and in my experience, this makes a huge difference because we are shifting at a nervous system level how we're showing up. And Mary kind of spoke to that, when we're shifting at a nervous system level of how we're showing up, particularly with, and I can't generalize across autistic individuals because every single one is different and it presents differently. many are highly sensitive people, and so they're picking up on our energy. And so when we're shifting at this nervous system integrated level, it literally shifts how they respond. Another piece of it is really understanding their sensory needs. And I'm sure you've done a whole lot of OT and a whole lot of work around the sensory needs and bringing that into the equation under the needs. Because what I found is even with, I, I think it's a stretch to call anybody neurotypical because everybody is so unique and different. But even with people that may not have as many sensory needs or whatnot, I find that particularly with preteens and teens, uh, and preteens starts around age 7, 8, and goes through age 12, 11, depending on the kiddo. And then teen can start around 12, 13. But that with children in that area, what they're fighting about is often a metaphor for other things that are happening underneath for them.
Mm.
And so when we're able to use this process and really expand it to encompass everything that's going on for that child, oftentimes what we find is it's not about the thing. It's not at all about what we were arguing about. It's about something completely different that we just didn't even realize in the moment. Curious how that sits for you, Christy.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly accurate. I think that's part of the dilemma is you're digging tunnels trying to find out what it is, and they don't even know. So you're part of this process is guessing, and
Mhm.
you most of the time are wrong. You're like, I don't know
Mm,
what's going on.
mhm.
Um, yeah.
I
So
think,
there are lots of layers, and it's hard to know
yeah,
what it is, how to piece it apart.
yeah. And our process of guessing is a little bit even more, we have a format that's even more detailed than what we went through today that can help us to take more of those things into consideration. And I find that, again, going back to the community, one of the exercises that I've done in MVC that's been really fun is everybody gets a few. I don't know if anybody here has played with grok cards, but you get a few grok cards, and that's what you get to guess from. And it's really interesting how some of the way far out guesses will stimulate something that's actually very alive. So being in community, sometimes having some, the crowd brain to make those guesses about what's going on for somebody can really help us to step into deeper compassion and curiosity and clarity. So the hive mind, I think, is very helpful with that too. Well, thank you for sharing that. Do you feel complete for now?
That's a not a way I've heard it before. um, it's okay to move on. You
Okay.
have permission to move on.
Okay. Thanks, Christy.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll go
thank
to
you.
looping.
Um, so I'm curious because when I was hearing like Christy sharing, I have a strong urge to share and to hopefully support. Um, but I'm also seeing myself kind of debating, um, especially when Holly started kind of sharing about like, kind of her experience with like kids with what's the word artistic, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't want to uh, take for granted that I can resonate, but end up sharing something that um, kind of lowballing what Christy you're actually kind of carrying. Um, so I guess one thing I heard is that when you're trying to interact with your kids to guess their feelings and needs, you found that they don't seem to understand or it doesn't seem to work for them, this strategy, to connect with them and to support them. Um, and the two things came to me, like when I heard that. First is like I feel like I can hear that you are owning kind of this, like you're putting this on your shoulder. You feel like you are because you are an adult, so you really want to find a strategy that you can effectively support your kids, especially when they are going through a challenge or your relationship with them are going through a challenging moment. Um, and then what came to mind is that, okay, but it doesn't necessarily only happen to kids. I have a husband who's very intelligent, had a master degree, never had any disabilities. Hope he couldn't hear it. But he chose not to open to MEC. You know, he doesn't trust this strategy. So when I talk to him, I cannot, like use the typical like MEC to him either. Like, and he would be, challenging me all the time, like, what do you mean by you want me to reflect back what you said? Like, well, how does that help? That's wasting of time. Why am I going to repeating back to you what you said? Or, like, okay, like, what do you mean by like a need or observation? There's no like clear observation in this whole world. Like every single observation contains some kind of opinion, And he's kind of like keep challenging me on like, what do you mean by like this need? How does that help with our communication? So I guess what the point I'm trying to make is, like I guess what we're practicing today by, like suggesting like we connecting with whoever we care for in this like guessing feelings and needs, I'm only seeing it as one strategy that may work, under some situation for some people. But when it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that we didn't do it right, you know. So what I'm seeing in this process, which is most beneficial for me, is I use this evaluation to ask myself this question, like, like, am I get bothered by, whatever his reaction or what he does to me? So if my kids did something to me or my husband said something, it bothers me. Then I'm like, okay, there's something I can explore, in myself on what needs of mine are not being met. And how can I better understand myself and give myself a break, give myself a hug, give myself the support to meet that needs. So, because to me, if I'm completely open, like, yes, I may not like what they're doing or what they're saying, but it should be indifferent to me, like what happened, right? Anything like comes to me like, like he choose to do that, I don't, if this is not my value, I'm not gonna make that choice. But if it bothers me, that means there's something in me get triggered, right? Because I don't like that. So I found MVC super duper powerful, for me to connect with myself, like slowly and patiently and caringly as much as I could until I feel a shift in myself, that I have this relief, feeling like, oh, okay. So now I'm not so triggered by this anymore. I understand this better, and after that, sometimes I choose to go back to connect with this person, but a lot of other times I just, like I show up differently next time. And, I find myself in a better place and strategies like would come, like naturally. I found my husband sometimes, he would just come back proposing a completely different strategy that he was so attached to. Say he was like, okay, like this is the only destination I want our next couple trip to be. And then I found super triggered because, I don't feel like I matter to him. He's like stressing some to me. And then I did this whole like self-connection and I finally feel like I'm a little more centered. And I'm like, okay, shall I go back and kind of tell him how I feel right now? And then a couple hours later, he came back with a completely different strategy. I guess he can feel like my energy shifted and I'm not as attached to whatever I initially proposed, that, that may give him, kind of the relief that, okay, whatever one of his needs in that, it's like it matters to me. So I'm gonna take my time to connect instead of like keep arguing and confronting him. So I'm being wordy here, but I guess, I'm hoping just to share a little bit of like my experience with MVC and how even without any zero cooperation from the other side, you could still feel kind of, you know, being met with like this warmth and, care and love, from it. So thank you, everyone. And sorry, like I'm taking so much time here.
Thank you, Lu Bing. I appreciate you sharing your experience and hearing your care too. Yeah. Um, I wanted to leave space because I know Christy, she was responding to you if there's anything you wanted to be heard for, or if you're okay moving on. Yeah. Oh,
There we go. Sorry. Thank you. No, thank you, Lubing. That was I think that's an important part of it that I jump over. So it's good to have a reminder of what it can look like internally. It doesn't have to involve the other person. Um, I think I have a lot of settling to do with that. And that's like coming to terms with that is hard. So, yeah. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for sharing too. Yeah. And this is the path of heart connection. This is our course. And this is what's central to it is that shift, that internal work, us supporting each other along the way and really opening up possibilities and seeing our choice. And I know we are short, so I turn it over to Holly to share about our program in the last bit of time that we have.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Yeah, so that was just a little taster of what we do in our program. We really try to connect at the heart with each other, hold connection at the center of all of our attendees and of the work that we're doing. Uh, we understand how deeply parents want their kids to feel and experience this deep sense of belonging, trust, and connection. So their kids truly see, feel, and understand the love that we have for them. And I think all parents have this indescribable love for our children. Um, and our children, unfortunately, don't always receive that the same way. And we really hope that this work is that bridge so that our children can really experience the depth of love that we hold for them. And that so that we have confidence in those times of conflict, those times when we don't sense that we're being seen, heard, or understood, we can still show up with confidence with our children and hold that love for them in a way that they'll see it. So together, we're looking to really create and build a community that holds each other with compassion and understanding. And there is a ripple effect. I hear it all the time that spreads out from each individual who does this work. It goes out to their families, to their friends, to their neighbors, to the paramedics on scene. One client told us about way beyond the walls of our course, and it just really warms our heart to bring that connection in. Like we mentioned, community, just as we saw tonight with, Mary and I had things to offer, but Lu Bing's offering of self-connection and how that contributes to those situations was really, really valuable. And this is part of the reason we do this work in community is we all have these human experiences, this innate human wisdom to draw from. And so though Mary and I are the facilitators, we don't contain any magical, wisdom that's going to answer your family's questions because you are unique and human. And that is the value of doing this work in a community and in a group because we truly get the wisdom of every human being there and their lived experiences. So imagine being supported and surrounded by parents who truly get it, who are taking the same approach, and they see your intentions and your efforts. For me, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Does that? Yeah, I see a few nods. Yeah, so that's why we're offering this 14-week foundational program where we really explore those the the foundational principles, and from there we have the option of going into a continuation program where we continue to build community, support each other through our human experiences, and we continue to explore this work. This year we focused on joy, we focused on perfectionism. Oh, that was a fun one. I grew a lot in that month, and several other things that have really brought us, more joy in our families and connection in our families on an ongoing basis. So I think we're going to skip sharing the forest of connection, which is where we share all of the skills that we learned during this time. But we assure you, it is a very long list of skills that we touch into throughout each of the weeks. And when we really start with building the community and setting your vision for your family. And then we go into nervous system and science and all of that, just to give you an idea of how it works. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen today, I would like to invite you to go ahead and sign up. And here's the link to do that. And you can just scroll down to the bottom or press one of the buttons to get to the contribution section. Sometimes there's a little confusion around how much to contribute, and here I'll show you right where that is. And so just sharing that this is, work that sustains Mary and I and our families. It helps pay for our mortgage, our childcare, the food that we put on our table. So it's not like we have spouses or situations that we're inherently wealthy and can just do this for the icing on the cake. That would be really nice, but that isn't our lived experience. So your contribution truly helps us support our families while we get to support our communities in doing this work that we love and cherish, and we hope we believe will truly support your families to connect in that loving way. So again, you can go to the top and scroll down and hit one of these buttons, register, view pricing, and that'll pop you down to the sliding scale options. And again, we really value this work, and it's more important to us that people can join us. At the end of the day, of course, we have to make ends meet, but we truly want everybody who wants to do this work to be able to do this work. So if our levels do not meet your needs, please reach out and let us know, and we will work something out. We will extend the length of payments or something like that. We'll figure out a way to include people. So, and if you have a friend, you can get $50 off, and your friend can get $50 off, and you can join the program together. Part of the reason that we do that is because of the importance of being in this work and community. And we find that when friends do it, it builds their local connections. And so you automatically kind of have an empathy buddy. You automatically have somebody that gets it and understands the point of view and can do this work alongside you. And it builds out that ripple, it builds out that community of support within our larger society. The contribution we're requesting is $175 per month, which is a little less than $50 a week, and it's significantly less than like going out to dinner or the movies. So again, we invite you to go about that with non-judgment and contribute with what aligns with your heart, and reach out if you have any questions or concerns about that. And I'd like to share a couple of things that people have said about our class. One is from Emmy, who said, Holly and Mary May's class has been really helpful for learning how to deal with the inevitable conflicts. What I have learned here has nurtured my relationship not only with my child, but my friends and family and housemates and coworkers. I highly recommend this class for anybody wanting to learn how to communicate more effectively and how to learn how to be more compassionate and heart-centered. Kara said the compassion and acceptance has been amazing. And I was just talking to Kara this morning, and she was like, it's really just this felt sense of home. And it was just so sweet. She's like, really, our entire household has shifted. She has older kids, and she was telling me how much they've shifted by doing this work. Alan said, this brings me hope, hope for humanity. And she's just finishing up the course. So those are just a few. You can see on the website other things, but I would really like to give you an opportunity to ask questions. The format is that we have these live calls, these workshops. I think we're pretty clear on that. We learn through experience, through skill, through knowledge, yes, but really it's the integration into the nervous system, the automatic responses that really makes the shift and the difference. We support everything. We have recorded sessions so that if you miss a session, we encourage everybody, if you're signing up, to come to at least half the sessions, but we do record all the sessions and they are available for the extent of the program, not lifelong, but the extent of the program, so that you can catch up. And Lu Bing needs to sign off. Thank you so much for being here, and totally understand that you need to support bedtime routines. So yeah, it is time to wrap up. Oh, I didn't even realize we went over. So thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, I'd love for you to just unmic and ask. And if you want me to stop the recording for you to ask, that's totally okay too. It's helpful to have them on recording, but happy to stop it if that makes you feel more comfortable.
You said that these are recorded, and I know you're recording this one, obviously.
Mhm.
I don't have any information about who from our group is planning on doing the paid version.
Mhm.
But is there a way that either you can use the email or I can send it to the group for access? I don't know if anybody was planning on coming who didn't show up or what, but I know there were a lot of us and I'm the only one here. So anyway,
Yeah.
can we share this recording as well?
Yes, we will upload this recording to YouTube and make it really easy to share. And we'll give you the link. And you can share it with far and wide, whoever you feel would be supported by this.
And our
Anything else?
recordings, just for clarity, the recordings for our class are just, those are not like totally, those are not public. Those are just within our class and only for those who are participating. If that helps answer any, like if something comes up around, oh wait, lots of people will see this. No. Mhm. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for being here today. We are so honored to walk alongside you on this path, and together we can create the kind of lasting trust and connection that will not only transform your family's relationship, but continue to shape them for years to come, like really living from this heart-centered place.
Mm.
We look forward to being in community with you, and I will stop the recording now.